Hello, I'm James Izimoha. Welcome to Africa News. Let's see your headlines. South Africa reaffirms its founding member status ahead of the G20 summit in the United States in 2026. Former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan calls army takeover in Guinea-Bissau ceremonial coup. Zambia receives investor boost with improved S&P rating. South Africa is pushing back after U.S. President Donald Trump claimed Pretoria would be excluded from next year's G20 summit, prompting President Cyril Ramaphosa to dismiss the remarks as baseless while affirming the country's role as a founding and active member of the global forum. The G20, which brings together 19 countries plus the European Union and now the African Union, concluded its annual summit under South Africa's presidency. President Ramaphosa rejected U.S. allegations and restated South Africa's standing in the G20 after Washington cited disputed claims to justify its absence from recent summit engagements.
Earlier this week, we formally handed over the G20 presidency for 2026 to the United States, observing the appropriate diplomatic protocols. A few days ago, President Donald Trump made a statement to the effect that South Africa would not be invited to participate in the G20 in the United States. He repeated untrue statements about genocide against Afrikaners and the confiscation of land from white people in our country. We must make it clear that South Africa is one of the founding members of the G20, and South Africa is therefore a member of the G20 in its own name and right. We will continue to participate as a full, active and constructive member of the G20. Despite the challenges and misunderstandings that have arisen between South Africa and the United States, South Africa remains a firm and an unwavering friend of the American people.
Turning to West Africa, Nigeria's former president Goodluck Jonathan has briefed President Bola Tinubu after leaving Guinea-Bissau, where soldiers seized power during the tense election period. He labeled the coup as, quote, ceremonial, as ECOWAS prepares a mediation mission.
Nigeria's former president Goodluck Jonathan has described Guinea-Bissau's military takeover as a ceremonial coup after observing the election. The remark follows a sudden intervention by Guinea-Bissau soldiers that ousted former President Umaro Sissoco Embalo and installed Major General Horta Intaye as transitional president for a period of 1 year. Jonathan says the intervention was unlike a typical palace coup and was effectively carried out by the head of state himself.
What happened in Guinea-Bissau? It is not what some people would say palace coup. It was not a palace coup. We know coups. Real coups, palace coups we know in Nigeria. This was not even a palace coup. I was looking for the appropriate word to describe. I couldn't get it. I described it as a ceremonial coup. It was a ceremony conducted by the head of state himself. The key thing is that that election was concluded. Tallying of the results was almost concluded. In fact, the results are known. And the key thing is that the winner of that election must be announced. Well, they cannot kick out the military with force, otherwise people will die. But let us know the winner of the election.
ECOWAS leaders meet in the coming days, with pressure mounting for the release of results and a swift return to constitutional order.
Tunisian authorities are enforcing lengthy sentences issued against opposition figures as prominent activist Chaima Issa was detained during a protest. This raises concerns over a deepening crackdown that right groups say signals an intensifying confrontation between President Kais Saied and his political critics.
Tunisian police have arrested opposition figure Chaima Issa to enforce a 20-year prison sentence. The arrest follows a major appeals court ruling that imposed heavy sentences on dozens of opposition and civil society figures, prompting warnings of escalating repression. Before her arrest, Issa said the charges were unjust and stressed the need for citizens to defend freedoms and the economy.
If I am in prison today, my message is to oppose, to denounce the destructive project. For Tunisia must be there always. The voice of the street must always remain alive. The street must always defend freedoms and defend the country's collapsing economy. I have nothing personal to gain. I have no benefit of my own. My only concern is for my country and for future generations.
Opposition leaders say the people must unite to restore rule of law.
I call on them, the people, to unite in order to restore constitutional legitimacy, the rule of law, the separation of powers, the protection and respect of freedoms, the release of all political prisoners, and a national dialogue to establish a roadmap that can lead this country out of its crisis.
Rights groups are urging authorities to annul the sentences, warning that Tunisia's political climate is entering its most restrictive phase since 2021.
In economic news, Zambia has regained crucial investor confidence after Standard & Poor's upgraded its credit rating. It follows progress in restructuring external debt as agreements now cover most of the targeted amounts, setting the stage for the country's projected economic growth heading into 2026.
After missed payments and protracted restructuring talks, Zambia's progress in striking deals with creditors and tightening fiscal management has begun to pay off. The credit ratings upgrade has been touted as a vote of confidence in the Southern African nation and has been welcomed by both the public and private sectors.
Looking at a situation where a noose has been removed from your neck, I think it was stifling a lot of Zambia's growth, not only from the terms or in terms of fiscal space for government to do anything, but also from private sector to also look at contracting loans from across the borders. When the country is in a default status, it doesn't only affect government ability to contract debt, it also affects private sector.
Businesses are optimistic that more affordable credit and a stronger kwacha will result from the ratings upgrade. It also opens the door for the government to borrow for critical infrastructure projects.
A country like Zambia needs to look at its transport system strategically, and it's only debt that will be valuable in trying to sort this problem out. The other area where debt would be extremely important to acquire is in the area of energy. That if Zambia borrowed money to build power stations, we would see a situation where we would have several hydroelectric power stations that would serve the needs of Zambia.
Experts say the government should maintain the discipline that earned this upgrade.
Sorting out the debt, being able to access more debt but targeted to the right economic infrastructure that would build a Zambian economy is extremely important. Given that now we have the Public Debt Management Act, that Parliament must approve any new debt.
Zambia is projecting a 6.5% economic growth in 2026.
And looking at sports, Zimbabwe's Sables are awaiting next week's Rugby World Cup draw as they prepare for their first appearance since 1991. They enter from the lowest seeding band and face a demanding path that includes several experienced sides ahead of their long-anticipated return to the global stage.
Zimbabwe goes into the 2027 Rugby World Cup draw fully aware of what awaits them. Placed in the lowest tier of teams, the Sables are almost certain to be matched with one of the tournament heavyweights, the fate that has befallen Namibia, Africa's representatives over the past 2 decades, who are repeatedly grouped with the likes of New Zealand and South Africa.
I think it's going to be similar for us. We're going to have one of those big favorites to win the World Cup with us, but that's a good thing. That's a good opportunity because it'll allow us an opportunity to see where we are.
As for expectations at the tournament itself, Muchochomi says Zimbabwe's focus should be on executing fundamentals and proving they belong at this level.
I think one of the things is putting up a good fight and showing people that we're a rugby nation and play a good brand of rugby. When we're in defense, in attack, execute our lineouts, and if we win our own scrums, that would be a great start. I don't think too many teams are expecting us to win scrum penalties, but if we surprise them, that would be great.
Supporters echo the view that effort on the pitch matters more than the scoreboard.
In any game, my expectation is to show process in how we play. If we play against the All Blacks, how long can we defend within our 22 yards? An All Blacks onslaught, can we hold that for 5 minutes? Can we have 10 continuous phases against a team such as that?
Ahead of the tournament, the Sables have a packed schedule. They will face Canada, Chile, Samoa, Tonga, the United States and Uruguay, a crucial run of matches to harden the squad ahead of its World Cup return.
Well, that's all we have today in African News. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to A News.